Kirsty Godso, welcome to the show. How you doing?
I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so happy to have you.
We've had many a vacation together and work, but never an actual sit-down podcast.
Well, this is going to be a good one because you're a fitness expert, we're friends, you're fun, and you work with many top household names in the entertainment sphere. And so I'm excited to pick your brain about all things fitness myths because, I feel like we all live in like these echo chambers now on social media. But in preparing to have you in, I did a little bit of a deep dive in terms of current myths that are circulating now, like in various pockets on the socials. And I thought, who better than you to come in and
how does that feel for your Instagram algorithm now, just really like making it toxic in there?
Well, I feel like in many ways there are so many areas today that have become toxic, right? Like the sort of polarity that you see in politics now kind of pervades almost every discourse, you know? And then on fitness in particular, people have hold such strong opinions. And then you throw like testosterone into the mix. And it's just like fuel on the fire.
No, it really is. It's like a very confusing topic, I think, because people want to really care about fitness and they want to do better, but they get caught in the storm of like the opinion territory. And it's like, if we could just scale back the emotional side of it, we could all do so much better and like really understanding and getting to know your body and not pretending that we're robots and that we just fill in these silos and there's only a few silos. I'm like, guys, there's so much more than that.
100%.
And actually, we're luckier than ever because we have all this information. We have way more studies, so we should be better than this.
Absolutely. But then there's the debate between like the evidence-based lifters and the bro science. And it's like, who's right? There's definitely wisdom to be learned in the trenches, like
yes.
in the actual practice of fitness versus what the data shows. And I feel like, there's a lot to talk about. But let's dive right in. So one of the biggest myths I feel like that I've seen circulating, this isn't like a recent myth, has been for years, the idea of spot reduction.
Oh yeah.
The fact that like when you're working out a certain body part, like by doing more crunches, you can reduce the fat in your midsection, your belly fat. Is that a myth or is there any truth to that?
Yeah, it's a myth. I mean, the biggest thing with belly fat is that's coming down, especially if you're talking about women. That's like we're looking at hormones and we're looking at nutrition. Like we're really looking at some lifestyle factors there before we're looking at movement. Because even if I'm trying to tone someone's core, like that's the first thing I'm looking at is making those nutritional changes. And we're not doing crunches to get it. Like, sure, there might be a version of a crunch in the thing, but we're really going for like heavy full body exercises to make a dramatic change to the core. I've always said two exercises that really made a huge difference in my core were chin-ups and front rack squats. Like anything front racked where I'm really like loading, like that was when my core was at its craziest. Neither of those are a like spot reduction like technique of a crunch, but also it's like you got to pay attention to where your hormones are at, because otherwise, like especially as women, we're going to store fat in places like lower abdomen, which doesn't feel good. Love handles, like we're going to get the bra fat kind of bulge and we're going to get it around here. So that's like a hormonal indicator. And then we really want to look at the nutrition. Like, are you having inflammatory foods? Are you eating like the wrong type of foods? And then you also have to look at body type, because we all have a different body type. Are you an ectomorph? Are you,
Yeah.
And understanding the architecture of your real estate, but we're not looking at spot reduction. And we still hear it all the time.
All the time?
Yeah.
So wait, chin-ups? You found chin-ups to be
Oh my gosh.
really beneficial?
I'm going to show you a photo at the end. It was crazy. Like not only was my back crazy, but my core was just ripped.
How many chin-ups can you do?
So in my prime, I could do 17 perfect form chin-ups in a row. And then I really was working on weighted chin-ups for a long time. So my goal was to do it with half my body weight, but I sort of plateaued when I got to about 23 kgs attached. So at the time I was 50 kgs. So I really wanted to get, 25 kgs. Couldn't quite get there. It was really hard.
That's so impressive.
Yeah.
I feel like very few people realize, which is weird, it's so intuitive to me, but that everybody has abs. They're
Yes.
just covered to varying degrees
Yes.
by fat.
Yes. And also what I think is cool about abs is we all have different abs. Like they're all shaped differently. And so that's something that, obviously like a lot of my clients are pretty lean. And so I always say like Kaya has these like super diverse abs. Like we can make her abs look really different all the time. So kind of depending on what campaigns she has or what roles she's doing in a movie, like we can mix it up. She has super versatile abs, but that's pretty rare. A lot of people don't have that. You know, it's like some people have the traditional six-pack shape. Some people get the line right down the center. Some people get the more chamber look. It's really unique. And I think that's the other hard part when we're looking at inspiration, right? Like people can show you an inspiration photo and you can be like, okay, we're probably not going to get that just via the structure of your body, but like here's what we can do.
So what are the biggest then dietary strategies to reveal those abs? I mean, and also exercise, like you can grow
Yes.
the size of your abs, right?
Yes. And this is the thing where it's like training men versus women can be so different, and even nutrition for men versus women. Like I always think sometimes I'm like, man, it'd be nice to be a guy sometimes and just be able to go do like chest press and squats and all these things. Whereas with women, it's so intricate and it's really like, there are just so many variables to play with. But I think that's also what I like about my job and really specializing with women, because you got to be really detailed. I always am like, we're in the auto body shop, you know, we're not just getting the general car clean. We're like really going into the detailing. But, you know, one of the first things I'm going to try to do is reduce inflammation. Everyone has some amount of inflammation happening in their body. So I will be pulling out inflammatory foods, like anything like soy-based, corn, like bad oils, like unnecessary additives. Obviously, we're avoiding sugar and stuff like that ideally. But getting rid of corn is like such a game changer for a lot of people.
That's super interesting.
Yeah, corn is very inflammatory. And I'm not like, you know, terrorizing against like a corn on the cob. It's like, but like corn-based product a lot of the time is really, it's just like doesn't work. And like a lot of people always come back to me and they're like, wow, when I took out the corn, you were really right. I used to years ago drink a soy flat white. So if you're from New Zealand or Australia, that's like what we call a certain type of coffee. And I remember when I just changed that to a black coffee, that alone was the only thing I changed. I lost like another 4% in body fat. That's how inflammatory the soy product was.
That's wild.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not aware of any, you know, direct causal relationship between corn and inflammation or soy and inflammation, but you found with your clients that when you remove or reduce their intake of soy and corn, you see inflammatory markers go down?
For some like context too, like I was on fitness DVDs. So it's like, that's a very scrutinized body type, right? And doing high intensity and, you know, everything, they want everything showing. Like every muscle's popping, everything is toned and tight. And
have you seen the Substance?
No, I haven't watched it yet because, like, honestly, I'm a little bit scared to watch it.
I get it. I would be too.
You know, yeah. I'm just like, I'm a wuss. Like, I can't even watch, like, I think everything's scary. I can't even watch White Lotus at the moment. The music freaks me out. Like, they lost me at, like, the intro trailer. But so I did the keto diet, like, early on, which obviously strips away all of those things anyway. But, you know, you always have to take into account person to person dependent. Like I have some clients where like their body loves pasta and does great on pasta. So I'm not going to take that away from them. But typically we do see things like corn and soy being like a common like bad.
Yeah. I mean, wheat, dairy, corn, soy,
Yeah.
I feel like those are the top most common instigators for people.
And it's like a big thing for dairy too is like I always look at it, I'm like, okay, well, what type of dairy is it? You know, like I'm not a fan of cheese, which I think is a superpower. Like I've never liked cheese, but like that's usually something I'm trying to take out versus trying to take out like a high quality like protein powder or like a great Greek yogurt or something like that. You know,
Yeah.
And it obviously depends on if someone's really like lactose intolerant or, you know.
That makes sense. Do you have to coax your clients into eating more protein? Because I feel like this is something that comes up a lot is that, you know, men seem to have a much easier time. Maybe it's due to culturally conditioned preferences or maybe some innate biological preference for high protein foods, steak and things like that. But what I hear come up again and again is that women tend to struggle with hitting their protein targets.
Yeah, and I think it's because it's been made to feel so complicated. Like if we're thinking about it in terms of like eggs, which actually don't even have a great protein count anyway, or chicken breast or something like that. And you know, it sounds really boring. I remember at one point when I was keto, I did eat a steak for breakfast one time. And my boyfriend at the time was like, babe, I'm just going to let you know, like, this is not cute. And I was like, I agree. It was also like very hard to eat steak for breakfast, like never again. But I needed a break from eggs, you know, because I was trying to
Steak and eggs? Come on, Bert. That's a breakfast of champions.
I know, but like steak in the morning is so heavy. But I really try and simplify it for my clients so it's so easy. And like any woman that I speak to, like via the internet or things like that, I'm like, my favorite thing first thing in the morning is I either drink bone broth or I drink protein water. So I scoop like one heaped scoop of protein. So I'm getting 30 grams of protein just shaken with 8 ounces of water. Like I usually go room temp water or like cold-ish, just not super cold first thing in the morning, so my gut's not getting a crazy shock. And that's great. You've got 30 grams of protein straight in your system, super fast digesting by doing that.
I love that. Do you try to hit a certain target every day, or?
I just know that my body feels really great off protein and like healthy fats. Like I'm not a huge carb person. I'm also celiac, so I feel like...
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I was born celiac, so I feel like that's kind of cool because it's actually super helpful because you don't think about a lot of these foods that people really struggle when you're trying to cut them out of their diet, So I really think that was helpful. And because I didn't grow up eating gluten-free bread or cookies or pasta or anything, like it's just not of interest to me. I don't think about it. So I really like protein anyway, but one thing I do for myself at this age, I'm in my mid-30s now, is like, I don't track calories and macros or anything. I'm just pay a lot of attention to the ingredients and things and like how my body feels. I'm kind of in constant dialogue with how my body feels like energetically and like digestion wise. And, on most days it's like I can go to bed and my stomach doesn't look that much different from when I woke up. And that's how I know like my body is really like I'm fueling it with the things that it needs. So, when people do struggle, and I know for women it sounds so overwhelming in the beginning to get that much protein, it doesn't have to be. Like if you're doing it, like obviously you want some whole food sources as well, but it's like having some eggs, having some Greek yogurt, having your protein, like eating like a nice lean protein, maybe at lunch or dinner. I love ground beef. I love ground turkey, like chicken, fish, steak.
Staples. Love it. Yeah. Those are some of my faves.
I love.
Speaking of protein, the second myth that I wanted to debunk or maybe support, I don't know, is that you have to eat protein right after a workout in order to validate your workout, the concept of the anabolic window.
Yes. I mean, I was victim to this when I was younger. Like in my early 20s, I was like almost having a panic attack once I finished my workout, thinking I had to shovel this protein in. And so, if you've ever been there, like we're not judging you, and I'm like, I think it's so much nicer to be like, oh, I can have protein, in a lucid time frame. Like obviously if you're doing a super intense workout or something, it is designed to help your muscle recovery and repair. So, having it within some time frame, maybe like 2 hours after your workout, even up to that time frame is great. But your body's still going to use it and appreciate it if you're having it at any point. Like even me saying, hey, I drink my protein water in the morning first thing before I go train my clients, and then I do my workout, and then I come home and make eggs.
Yeah. Yeah, there was this, I remember feeling like I needed to rush to my shaker bottle immediately. Yeah, exactly. After a workout. And I think that was the prevailing sort of narrative.
I feel like it kind of like, I do think a lot of these things kind of drifted across from like the bodybuilder kind of mentality of things, which is interesting because even when I first really got into fitness, like in New Zealand, it was very bodybuilder dense. Like if you were a woman training in the gym, like strength training especially, and drinking protein, like you were getting ready for like a bikini competition. And I was like, no, I just like to work out and kind of am curious how many chin-ups I can do.
Yeah. Well, what I gather from the research is that basically, as long as you're hitting your protein target over the course of the day, like there's really that window is way wider than we ever thought.
Even like creatine. Are you having creatine? Do you take creatine?
Yeah, I love creatine.
So I was always like, dipping my toe in, but never being consistent enough. And I've actually been taking it at nighttime. And I kind of love that you can just have it at nighttime. I just have it at nighttime. I put in a little bit of glycine and shake it with water. And I just find that's nice. Like I just do it then. It doesn't matter. Like same thing with creatine, like really doesn't matter what time of day you're having it. But I think we put a lot of stress on ourselves, about like, oh gosh, protein's got to be here. Creatine needs to be here. And we make it a little overwhelming. So hopefully this gives people some peace around being like, oh, cool. I can just factor these things into my day.
Yeah.
And see where it lands.
Amen. Yeah, there's no need to take creatine at any specific point in the day. You don't need to take it hypothetically post-workout. I think the thinking is still that it might help to facilitate uptake into skeletal muscle, but there's no real necessity to do that because creatine's its impact is not like acute
Yes.
to the time frame in which you
And
take
they say
it.
it's more important the consistency of it, just that you keep taking it and
Yeah.
that you get that runway. I think a lot of people quit on products before it's had enough time to like really like even take hold in their system and like show an impact. So it's like I think you really need like 3 weeks consistently of taking it to know if it's making a difference.
That makes sense. It's interesting that you take it before bed, though, not because I feel like there's anything inherently wrong with that, but I have heard some anecdotes of people will
Finding
tell
it
me,
stimulates them.
yes. And there's no mechanism there that would like,
Yeah, it's not meant to have any like stimulant in it, but obviously possible because it is meant to really help you with your brain. So
yeah,
maybe they're doing some crazy thinking in their sleep.
but it doesn't impact your sleep.
It doesn't impact me, and it's like, if I can take it earlier in the day, I'll take it. And like, but it's just if I've sort of forgotten. I'm like, oh great, I have it at nighttime and it's fine.
And you add glycine. Glycine is there a specific reason why you do that?
I do glycine at nighttime just like because it can like help support like sleep, and it is like you never really know sometimes with some of this stuff. You're like, okay, does my body seem to feel good with this? You're like, yes, because it does say it can help with liver and heart health and like cardiovascular function. I like glycine anyway, but it is a non-essential amino acid.
Yeah, true that. And it tastes good. It tastes really good.
It tastes so sweet.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, sometimes I say to people, I'm like, if you were thinking about like having dessert and you're trying not to, like, you could just have your glycine.
Exactly. It doesn't taste quite like sugar, but it's like pretty close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was shocked the first time I had it. I was like, whoa.
Yeah. It's wild.
Yeah.
That and like...
Who actually got me onto that was Crosby.
Oh, interesting. Crosby
glycine
Taylor.
at nighttime.
Glycine at nighttime. Yeah. There's there's data on that. It's a dope amino acid. I mean, I take collagen. So like if I'm taking a lot of 1/3 of collagen is glycine. So if you're taking collagen, you don't necessarily, I mean, it's not like a 1-to-1 conversion because glycine is like a free form amino acid versus collagen. But like,
what collagen do you like? Do you like go marine or do you go
no, I go
bovine?
bovine.
Same.
Yeah.
I'm a bovine collagen person.
I'm agnostic. I mean, we work with Bubs. So I take Bubs. Yeah. It's a really high quality collagen, but there's like plenty of good collagen.
Yes. Yeah, and I
supplements.
think it's like for people finding what one seems to work for them. I've noticed a significant difference in my hair and my nails like since being really regular with collagen. But I have a one ingredient only like collagen that I like to use, but it's always a bovine collagen that I'll use.
Yeah. No, I think collagen is great. I got into it with of course an exercise scientist or protein scientist on social media who, his claim was that collagen is a complete useless waste of money, and I'm like, you can't really say that. I mean,
no, I feel like your skin's looking great too.
Thank you.
Yeah, I wish more men would take collagen. Men, if you're listening,
there's literally like
take your collagen.
Take your collagen. There's I completely disagree with him. There are meta-analyses now that show that collagen supports skin health. I think the glycine in collagen is really valuable. There's biological plausibility that it's going to support. It's giving you the raw materials to synthesize collagen. So as long as you're taking that as well as vitamin C, which also plays an important role. Yeah, I think it's
How
great.
do you like to take your vitamin C? Liposomal or?
Yeah, I get like Live On Lab, so I just squeeze those little disgusting packets into my mouth. That was my
OG one. That brand is huge in New Zealand. Not sure why. So like anytime I was remotely sick, my dad was always shoving them at me. I was like, these are awful. But you get them down, they do the trick.
They do, yeah. They're great.
Typically, I try and like load up when I'm having my protein. That's when I'll scoop in. Like I put my collagen in at the same time. I'll put in some L-glutamine, and then I'm kind of like, okay, great. Like this is I'm ready to go. Should just throw my creatine in there too, but
I think it's great. I mean, it's not a replacement for like whey protein.
Yeah,
it serves a different function.
Yes, exactly.
But
the whey protein for me personally is like the biggest, I think, where I really notice a significant difference when I'm having it versus when I'm not. My body just feels really great and supported. I feel like my muscle recovery is so different. And I do think if you really want to hold lean muscle, it's like you have to take care of it.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing too about coming back to even like women and protein and stuff. It's like if you want this lean toned look and stuff, it's like that's muscle and you need to keep that going. So you can't really undereat too much, and you do have to be cognizant of having like protein and stuff that's going to keep it happy.
So that's a great segue into trope number 3. Myth or not, I don't know. Kirsty Godso is going to walk us through it, unpack it for us. Lifting weights makes women bulky.
Oof, I hate this one. Because I just think that it's the same as saying, like creatine makes you bulky, and like we live with all this fear mongering, and it's like, no, as women, especially as you get older, it's like really important to lift weights. Like lifting weights changed my life. Like just even from a confidence standpoint, like I think it's so powerful, and that alone, lifting weights doesn't make you bulky. Like really when people start looking bulky in their workouts is like when they're not doing appropriate recovery, or like they're doing maybe like overloading their training. And there can be like a nutritional thing that's slightly off, like usually inflammation is your body telling you something. And like bulkiness in general, like, yeah, sure, you can train and strength train yourself for a bigger, bulkier look, but that's usually what you're going for if you're doing that. Your average strength training and following a program is actually going to give your body like beautiful muscle definition.
And also it's really hard to get,
it's really, you got to be like really going for it. And you've got to be doing very specific stuff to get very bulky, which most people aren't doing by accident.
Yeah, including like augmenting yourself with hormones and stuff like that. Like, I mean, I've been weight training my entire adult life, and I don't look, I mean, I still look small compared to others on social media who, won't disclose, but are likely, very likely augmenting with various
taking some sort of peptide or some sort of something a boost. I love how we like just blanket everything, but it's a peptide. I'm like, okay, babe. But yeah, I really think that strength training it's an undeniable thing for women. I think that every person, men and women, should strength train. It's truly so amazing for your body. It's incredible, and it's giving your body like perfect structure. I think unless you're a specific athlete that like can only do a certain like types of training, like everyone should have a little bit more well-rounded training with them. So you're getting your calculated cardio, you're getting your strength training as the bulk of your like weekly workout schedule, and then you're getting in a little bit of that Pilates and yoga. It's like you can't ignore strength training. It's like if one of those things had to go, it would never be the strength training.
What were you telling me about Pilates?
Listen, like I love Pilates, but there's a lot of nonsense out there from not everyone, but like there's a lot of talk from the Pilates community about like anti-strength training. And like that strength training makes you bulky, or that it's like going to cause too much cortisol and you're going to look like this and you're going to look like this. And it's like, hey, like let's just get really clear on what strength training actually does for a woman's body. And you're going to get the most change from strength training. And strength training and even high intensity are really important for women in their 40s as they approach menopause, because it becomes more difficult to actually shift fat. So they need that specific high intensity training paired with their strength training. So the strength training really for bone density and keeping a lot of the muscle, and using specific high intensity to help like with the weight loss. Now, when you're in your 20s, you're in a unique window of time where like you can kind of get away with a lot more. 30s, you got to be a little more dialed in. But I don't think there's any need, and it's very inaccurate to like talk down on strength training.
But is Pilates not a form of strength training?
Exactly.
It is, right?
Yeah. And like, I love Pilates. I particularly love mat Pilates. That's personally like my favorite.
So that's like without the reformer?
Yeah, without the reformer. I don't think reformer Pilates is for everybody. Like, and maybe mat Pilates isn't either. So it's about like finding what one is good for you. But yes, it's a form of strength training as well. But it's like, if you really want to make some of those changes to your body like quicker, strength training is going to sometimes do it faster. And my favorite combination is strength and Pilates, both of them, but not necessarily within the same workout, So it's like you're doing your heavy strength in the gym, or like moderate to heavy strength, and then you're doing your higher rep-based lower weight stuff in the Pilates.
I've done reformer Pilates like once or twice, and it was one of the hardest workouts I've ever done, because men are not like really accustomed to that. It's like all about the pelvic floor and core.
It's really challenging.
It's crazy.
Yeah. I think it's an incredible thing for everyone to add in, even just from a mobility standpoint, from control of your body. So like I say this with the utmost love to the Pilates community, because I love Pilates myself and I'm certified in mat Pilates, but there's no reason to be afraid of strength training also be important, because it's undeniable.
Do you find that some women just like will only do Pilates?
Oh, yeah. A lot. And I think a lot of women are scared to strength train from what they see on the internet, and people talking about, strength is going to do this to you, or high intensity is going to do this, or cardio is going to do this. We shouldn't really be talking like that, because we want people to move and we want people to feel well in their bodies. And we also want people to understand like, hey, you can actually kind of do it all, but it's like having enough structure and consistency with the different modalities of training that you're doing, so you actually get a benefit, and then understanding when it's time to have a rest day.
Yeah. Strength training makes women strong, not bulky.
Yes.
Super, super important. Okay, number 4, no pain, no gain. I feel like this is something that you hear.
We've all been there, and that's when it's time to go to therapy.
Exactly.
That is when we're avoiding something else.
Exactly. But yeah, this idea that soreness is like mandatory as an indicator of having had a good workout.
Yeah. Soreness can be an indicator that like maybe you don't do the right type of recovery. Maybe you don't have like the right recovery support products, or one of my favorite things to do for recovery even after a really hard workout is like, even if you don't have Normatec boots, there's studies that show like even going for like a 10-minute walk or like a 10-minute easy like cycle or something on a bike at the gym can give you the same type of flush of trying to like clear some of that lactic acid in your body after an intense workout.
Yeah, and it's also like you could be sore just from having done something novel. Like it doesn't necessarily mean.
Oh, sometimes I get the most sore from just a body weight workout. I'm like scorched the next day. I'm like, whoa, okay.
And conversely, by not being sore, like if you don't happen to be sore after a workout, that doesn't mean that your workout was ineffective in any way.
Yes. And I think it's always just an indicator. It's like, okay, if you never get sore from your workouts, it might be an indication like, okay, it's time to like increase the weights or change up the programming. So, with strength training, we're always changing up your programming. And I think what's a barrier to entry for people with strength sometimes is they think it's boring to repeat the same, to get that level of consistency and enough reps in before you change the program. But like, it's actually really amazing. And then by the time you're ready for it to change, because ideally your weights are gradually going up, then you're ready, and then you get that soreness again because you're learning something new, your muscles are recruiting differently, and then you kind of like get stronger, you recover well, and so you kind of go through this cycle. But you shouldn't be sore all the time, and you should also like not ever be sore.
Yeah.
There's a fine balance.
Yeah, I get it. But this is a really important mindset shift that I think more people need to understand. It's that progress comes from consistency, not punishment.
Yeah, exactly.
And a lot of people will seek out soreness,
well,
in a way, as a form of masochism.
It is a masochism. Like I used to, kind of like love high intensity because I wanted to come up against myself and my inner dialogue, when I was reaching those levels of high intensity all the time. And, that's also why we saw the backlash kind of against high intensity, because people were overdoing it. It's like they were seeking out such a level of intensity and ignoring the science that it always said, hey, 3 times max a week with appropriate recovery in between. So yeah, it's, I see a lot of people in the gym kind of like doing the same, like very brutalist type workouts. And I'm like, man, like I kind of feel sorry for your body. Like in a sense of like just that back-to-back days, like it's not having a great time.
Yeah. And recovery is super important. I mean, recovery is when your muscles are growing.
It's incredibly important. Like, and I totally get it. Like sometimes when you're addicted to the gym, like the thought of taking a rest day seems so disturbing, and you really want to just keep training and obsessing. But it's like having that rest day, you always wake up the day after a rest day and you feel so good. Your body feels ready to go. Usually it's like there's no inflammation and it's amazing.
Do you encounter that ever? Exercise addiction? Like, do you see that?
Oh, totally. I mean, that was me all through my 20s too. And it's like, again, it's like, you're using it for something else that you're kind of not dealing with usually.
Big problem.
Big problem.
So on a related note, another myth is that sweating. So soreness doesn't necessarily indicate that you've had a good workout, and sweating too. Does that have any bearing whether or not you've sweat? I don't know if that's a word.
Yeah. Well,
sweated. Does that have any? Is that an indicator of a successful workout or not necessarily?
I mean, here's the thing. Everyone sweats differently, right? Like I barely sweat. So when I film with other trainers, I get sprayed down because I'm just not a sweater. Like for me to sweat, I have to kind of go to boxing or like go on a really long run. But I can do a super hard, high intensity workout and not really sweat versus like a friend of mine who's sweating doing mobility. So it's really not an indicator of, sometimes also it's an indicator that maybe your like lymphatic system's not draining so well. If you're really blocked up, but yeah, no. The sweat factor doesn't. I know we like to see these things, like sweat and soreness as like a medal, like that we're like, yes, I did good. I worked out really hard. But I think the more you can tune into like how your body feels and knowing when you're like, wow, that was a great workout, and just feeling that on your muscles, not having to see a drenched t-shirt.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's bringing up for me, like the difference between a steam room and a sauna. Like I vastly prefer saunas because I see my sweat. Yeah. Whereas A steam room, I don't really like it as much because you don't actually know what's coming out of you versus what's just like from the atmosphere. But they're probably beneficial in overlapping ways. It's just that I prefer the sauna, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the steam room is not doing anything.
I think it's personal preference. Like with those things, I dramatically prefer the sauna. Also, I mean, I prefer the cold plunge than either of those, but I know the sauna is really good for us, so I thug it out in there.
That's what they say. Sauna's got some...
I have to sauna with a friend. Like, I really can't do it solo. Like, I need someone to, like, stay there with me, whereas a cold plunge, I could stay in for as long as I want. Like, that, I'm, like, almost like I have to make myself get out.
That's impressive. I feel like that's not a common
No, I know.
thing that
I'm
you hear.
like, I don't know what's going on there. That might be the masochism still lurking in there.
Interesting.
We'll bring that one up in therapy.
But are you, you don't do it, I would assume, like right after a workout, right?
No, never. Especially not after a strength workout. I won't mind if I do it like after a really, really long run or something like that, where I want to kind of like get rid of inflammation straight away. Or when I've been filming for like, when I film for Pyro, like my online fitness platform, I usually film 3 workouts in a row, or sometimes 4. So usually I'll, like those are the days where I'm like, I actually am going to cold plunge straight away. I'm not going to wait because I need to make sure I deal with this muscle soreness now.
Yeah. I think when Wim Hof first started to gain popularity and cold plunging became, trendy, I think a lot of people were integrating it kind of haphazardly in the peri-workout window, after exercise and whatnot, which can be convenient, I'll admit, because sometimes gyms
if they have it there,
if they have it there. But there's been research that has come out, I think, in the years since that has shown that cold exposure can actually blunt some of the anabolic signaling that occurs.
And there's a lot of like really like that evidence is definitely like very clear that it's like, and especially for men. I always say like if you're really in, or like if anyone's in like a muscle building phase, I'm like, you're not trying to cold plunge. Like you're waiting 4 hours.
What would you say the benefits are though for like reducing pain?
Yeah, pain, inflammation, like really can help. But then again, for women, it's like you need to factor in temperature. So not going too cold so that it's upsetting your menstrual cycle and can actually like, kind of give you can actually change patterns in your body and perhaps get like then become too stressed out. Like because they say like it's to do with our basal temperatures too. So, but I think if you're really going for size and mass in the gym, you're definitely not jumping straight in the cold plunge afterwards, even if it's annoying to drive back to the gym later and do it then.
Yeah, I mean, I stopped doing it in the post workout. When I used to do it like.
Did you notice a difference?
Well, it's for me. I mean, I would often do it because I had like chronic low back pain for a while. And so I would do it. It would actually be really effective in terms of at least temporarily giving me like a semblance of relief because of the, the anti-inflammatory effects and also for mental health.
Yeah.
That to me was a big, big boost. So I would, but in terms of its impact on my like strength, I haven't really noticed a difference, but I haven't been really cold plunging as much.
Yeah.
For the past couple of years.
No, the mental health piece is huge. It's total escapism. I do think being in the cold plunge and like when you get into true high intensity, those two are in a similar, like where you're in a floating stage, where it's like all this kind of stuff evaporates from your mind and you can really just sort of be like, well, just like kind of hanging on here because it's really cold or I'm like really exhausted. And there's something kind of beautiful about that freedom space. It's
a state change.
Yeah.
For sure. It's like hitting the reset button on your mental state. I love it for that reason. Okay, the next concept, myth or not, more workouts equals better results.
No.
So the more I'm working out, the better my results are going to be.
Absolutely not. And this is the hard one. Like this is where we run into this question all the time. Like, is 30 minutes enough? Is this enough? Is this enough? I'm like, yo, have you ever done like sprint intervals? I'm like, you can do your whole workout within like 8 minutes, and you're like, that it's enough and it's effective. But I think really understanding like how your workout week is structured is an important thing for people because we see a lot of people doing back-to-back classes. We see a lot of people, trying to like overload their training. They even say with strength training, sometimes if your strength training program is too long, it's better to break it up into 2 sessions. So I used to do this years ago in New Zealand when I was doing a lot of heavy strength with my trainer. I would do 45 minutes of it in the morning and I would come back and do 45 minutes in the afternoon, which I know sounds super annoying, but I did work right across the street from the gym. And at the gym. So it worked. And I know that's not ideal and not probably applicable for most people that you can do that. But like, it's also understanding like when your body, like when you work out for too long too, the adaptation is going to drop off and you're actually not getting something good from it. So you want to think about quality time in the gym. And I know those words will resonate with women because it is one of the love languages. But yeah, you want to think about like making the most out of the time that you're in a workout. Like even if you're doing true high intensity, they're saying now you actually only need 30 minutes total of that across the whole week.
So less is more.
Yeah, less is more.
Assuming quality is...
The quality. And even if you're doing like a great, very dialed strength training program, like you might even be able to get through that whole thing in 30, 35 minutes, depending on like what the recovery is between the sets.
And conversely, like excessive training can lead to... You're just adding fatigue.
Yeah.
You're leaving yourself prone to injury.
Yes. And the problem is you're going to see a burnout start to happen. So we're going to get compromised adrenals, like cortisol can start going crazy. And, you know, cortisol is like a very like trending topic in general, like on the internet, especially for women, like cortisol face and all this stuff. I actually did kind of wreck my hormones and my cortisol and my adrenals and my thyroid all at the same time from
overtraining, undereating.
100%. And it's not even like, I always say to people, I don't blame keto. I don't blame high intensity. I blame having no balance and control with my work schedule. And like, that's on me because, you know, I was just doing so much exercise because it's also my job. So like when we film workouts, it was always like I would film 4 really hard, high intensity workouts back to back and do that 6 days in a row for a program that you're going to then get on like Nike Training Club. So like my body's not feeling good. Do you know what I mean? My system's feeling overwhelmed. My nervous system is out. And so the problem is like, you know, usually when a female body loses menstrual cycle, it's obviously it's a big sign that something's off. And it's like saying, you know, you're not safe to like actually hold a child and be able to like safely grow something in a healthy way. So I always say like to people, I'm like, don't be hard on yourself about these things. Just use it as information, like something needs to change. And so for me, I don't think I would have been able to make change unless like I crashed and burned as hard as I did. Because, you know, the problem is when you're feeling that fit and you're that lean and you feel really strong and like you don't realize sometimes until it's too late because you sort of gaslight yourself into believing that everything's great and everything's fine. Whereas like I always just try and help women with a like, because I think there's definitely men that over exercise as well, but with women especially we tend to do it. And sometimes when it falls into the area of maybe am I punishing my body by this obsession with fitness and trying to come back to the point that like usually it's like we start working out because like we love it. I mean, ideally we love it. I know not every workout is lovable. They're sometimes very hard, but yeah, and finding that balance and understanding what your body needs and when, and then also being able to be adaptable, waking up some days and being like, whoa, I'm really sore. Like it's a rest day today, or I'm going on a gentle walk, or I'm going to go in a sauna. But yeah, having that intelligence to just make the right decision for your body.
Yeah.
Because the exercise addiction thing and like thinking that we need to go to the absolute extreme day in, day out is got to go.
Or we need to punish ourselves for something we might have eaten.
There's just no longevity with it. And I always say to people, I'm like, listen, if you can avoid getting to the point where you've burnt everything out, like please do, because it takes a long time for your body to repair.
What did that recovery look like for you?
Oh my gosh, it was insane. Like it's taken me 5 years to get my thyroid like back into a good place. I spent, for someone that had never really been inflamed, like being inflamed for an entire year felt, and like on film and feeling like you were totally out of your body. Sure. Like from a vanity perspective, that didn't feel great. But from an emotional perspective, I was just so tired. Like if your thyroid is completely burnt out and not working for you because it's been working in place of your hormones, and then, you know, your thyroid is designed to control your metabolism amongst some other things. But when you have no energy to get out of bed and you're a naturally energetic person, like that feels like robbery. That just feels the worst. And then you feel very emotional because you're so exhausted and you're so tired. And so I was very lucky to like start working on my hormones right before COVID hit. And then obviously because COVID hit, the work dynamic really changed and I wasn't traveling like crazy and I could really like feel my body come back online. And I remember maybe like 2 weeks in, I remember just crying with happiness one day. I was like, oh my God, I kind of feel like myself again. Like I felt my personality coming back. I felt like my body getting back online. I saw the inflammation shifting, and yeah, I promised myself I like would never do that again. And I also was like, I will be like vulnerable with other people about my experience to like try and stop them from getting there. Because it happens all the time. You see it with women all the time, and it's just so unnecessary. And it's not taking us closer to our goal ever.
I get it. How often do you do blood work?
I probably do blood work quarterly. What about you? I feel like you're a monthly guy.
No, I would actually probably enjoy that in a masochistic kind of way, because I love knowing what's going on under the hood, but I don't do it often enough. Probably like once every 6 months.
Yeah,
or so.
I mean, it is an amazing snapshot, and I think then it's also good to like have some other things that like, because sometimes you can get a blood test and you're like, whoa, and you can freak out, and you can like see a number that, and if you don't have the right people around you to help you understand what that means or something, or look at other factors, or understanding like when you should get a blood test, like even for women, when we're looking at different hormone levels, it's like we're trying to do that at different times. Like my acupuncturist always tells me specifically when she wants me to get certain hormones checked.
Yeah, like women have this monthly cycle to like contend with, right?
Yeah.
So if you're like getting a blood test, like
we're like advanced mathematics over here.
it's like shooting a moving target. Yeah.
And then sometimes your cycle changes. You're like, oh, I missed the window. Damn it. Like, because you didn't know. Like,
so what do you hear? What do you think might be best practices then? Like whenever getting blood work, to get it within a consistent proximity to your, period, or I don't know.
I know a lot of people like you to get a blood test on day 2 to have a look at day 2 of your cycle, to have a look at certain things that are going on. But it also depends like where your health's at and kind of what you're focused on, and like, because not every blood test has to be hormone focused, like I really like a whole snapshot. Like I want to look at cholesterol and vitamin D and things like that, and I also want to check in on my thyroid, but I do also want to make sure that my like hormones are going okay. So like, I realized my progesterone was trash, and so I'm trying to supplement that with herbs, and that's going well so far.
Great.
Yeah
We love that.
But yeah, being a woman is it's really fun.
It definitely sounds more complicated. And, I struggle with like just the basics, and men we're so much more simple. So I can't even imagine. Yeah. Women just have like these beautiful, elaborate, elegant systems, and it's going to require a little bit more work.
Thank you for describing it that way. That was really nice. We need that as a snapshot.
No, it's true. We're a lot more rudimentary.
And also I know blood tests can sometimes be difficult to get or expensive. So it's like, also not putting a pressure on yourself that you need them too often, but just using them as a check-in and not avoiding them, because sometimes I also know people avoid them because they don't want to know what's going on. But, this is your beautiful body. You get one.
You get one. And I really appreciate there are these companies popping up. Like we worked with Life Force for a long time.
Oh yeah. I did a blood test with them recently.
Yeah. We don't currently work with them, but I mean, I've done the Life Force test a number of times, and I was really impressed. They send a phlebotomist over to your house. They draw blood. Mark Hyman launched a company recently called Function Health, which kind of functions in the same way. So I think it's kind of cool that these like consumer facing companies now are privatizing this, low bar, low friction means of getting blood work on a more regular and consistent basis.
Yeah.
Because it's so annoying. Otherwise you would have to make a doctor's appointment. You have to
go it's super annoying.
Yeah.
And then that's why people avoid getting this stuff done.
And then also you're like relying on the lifestyle advice of your doctor. No shade against doctors, but I mean, I've heard some nightmare stories from people that follow me that they'll go into their doctor's office and they'll see like slightly elevated LDL cholesterol, for example, and their doctor puts them on like, or tries to put them on. My followers know better, but we'll try to put them on like some vegan diet or something,
Yeah. It's funny you bring up the cholesterol, actually, because I was reading about this again the other day. It was like, because a lot of people that are very active can see sometimes like some interesting cholesterol numbers, right?
Yeah. Fasting raises cholesterol.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of interesting
and like
stuff.
Under eating, like in general, like kind of across the board. And
we're way more complicated than we're often made out to be. I mean, that's why you can't just treat a biomarker.
Yeah.
I'm not a big believer in that. I think you got to take a holistic view. And lipids are complicated. That being said, I don't think LDL is unimportant, but too often we'll see that being slightly elevated, and we almost get like tunnel vision for
we
that.
freak out.
Yeah. Oh my God, heart disease impending.
Yeah.
Red alert.
Yeah.
And I think that's, it's not wise to treat based on a single biomarker, unless that biomarker is like
Through the roof and crazy.
through the roof and crazy. Yeah, exactly. Not medical advice, FYI. But, all right, moving on. The notion that you can out-exercise a bad diet.
Oh.
We kind of touched on this, how people like will often punish themselves for
I used
what
to see
they've eaten
this
in the gym.
all the time. Like I used to teach a lot of high intensity classes, and some of them would be like in a row, and people would try and stay to do the second one. I'd be like, what are you doing? And they're like, oh my God, I had a crazy weekend. I'd be like, get out of the room. Like you did your 30 minutes high intensity. Like that's not changing that. And also now you're not going to get the benefits from the workout you just did if you stay and try and do this second high intensity session. Like, no, you got to go. And people don't want to accept that. And I think as difficult as it is, you sometimes just have to make peace with the fact if you ate badly or did something, and you like sort of need to look at the pattern and the behavior. And I always try and remind people, I'm like, well, like sometimes it's worth it. Sometimes you had a great time. It was a birthday, it was whatever. And like, cool, it happened. You're torturing yourself about it maybe more than your body actually is, by just getting back in rhythm and like going for your like 80-20 kind of like healthy consistency. But if it's like a repeat offender type like cycle, then it's like, okay, we got to really look at like some of these nutritional patterns.
Yeah. No, but like
But you're never going to clean it out.
Having that extra slice of cake or that extra slice of pizza, like it might not necessarily be good from a nutritional standpoint to do that. Like it might not, I'm not saying it's necessarily bad, but it could be good for the soul. It could be good for the psyche.
And that's important too, especially like I always say with women, it's like usually our minds that are against us. That's often the worst thing we're doing for our workouts, or the changes in our body that we're waiting to see, because we're torturing ourselves with this like internal dialogue and this expectation and like really like making it so stressful. Whereas if you can kind of like let some of the emotion out of it and just like sometimes let food be food and like give up the story that you attach to it about that like one time where you just like had a fun dinner with your friends. Like it's all good.
Yeah.
Your body's going to be fine.
So if someone goes a little too hard,
yeah,
what is the strategy moving forward? Or is there a strategy?
Listen, if you've really sent it, let's say you were like in Vegas over the weekend, or you were on a crazy vacation in Europe, like eating everything in sight, drinking way more and whatever. It's like, I usually like to come and just kind of do a little reset on my body after something like that, and like make sure my gut lining feels good. So I'll be, drinking bone broth first thing in the morning, but really focusing on like home cooked meals and being cognizant of my food and just going back to the basics of like, nutritional, like dense food.
It sounds like the reset is more psychological.
Yeah. And it's just like, even just being like not going from having fun and being really loose and like no boundaries to then going in like to the other extreme. Like your body's going to need some sort of balance there. And it's not, like, I think we always think that we're in control of the body. Like we think we can boss it around all the time. And like, that's the biggest thing that I've learned through like any time that I've, caused myself harm from overdoing it. I'm like, whoa, okay, sorry, body. And like, I kind of like talk to my body. Like I really try, I listen to my body. I used to talk at my body. Like really, like I would like boss it around, like I can do this, and I would like ignore every signal it would give me. Whereas now I really like listen and kind of like feel like I talk to my body of being like, okay, cool. I know this was the plan today, but like, how are we feeling?
I like that.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, driving around Los Angeles, you see lots of people talking to themselves. So
I'm fitting right in.
Yeah, exactly. This is an interesting myth that I've seen, that if once you stop working out, muscle turns to fat. If you stop working out, your muscle turns to fat.
I mean, it really depends. Like,
well, first of all, that can't happen.
That's not how it converts. Your muscle's probably just gonna like disappear, and like atrophy. But fat's usually coming from like something else, like lifestyle factor, like food, or like, it's not. But why are we stopping working out?
Yeah.
I want to know.
That's a good question. Yeah. This should be like a lifestyle, like a long-term play.
It really should be, because even if you look at like longevity in elderly people, Like it's so important, you know, like that's why like stability is like a really important type of exercise to start adding in as people get older, and like making sure that they like have the bone density, because it's like bones start to break a lot easier and stuff. But yeah, no, if you are worried about your muscle turning to fat, no.
Open up a biology textbook, for crying out loud. There are different tissues. Your muscle, you can gain or lose muscle, you can gain or lose fat, but your muscle cells are not turning into adipocytes. Like that just doesn't happen. But yeah, gaining muscle, that should be priority. And fat will, fat, it's sort of like, money. Like money comes and goes. You got to make peace with that. Too. Yeah, and fat comes and goes.
And I know with women too, sometimes we're like, yeah, I like it when the fat's there. You're like, cool, a little more in the boob, a little more in the butt or something like that. You're like, that's great. But typically it's like, no, girl, I'm going to your lower abdomen. You're like, damn it. It's like, you don't know where it's going to go.
And by the way, men, not that women should be chasing a body type for men, but they should be chasing the body type that makes them feel good and provides the greatest health benefits, yes. Right? But like, if you do happen to be thinking about, the dating pool, like if you're whatever single, and that's something that has crossed your mind, like men have all different kinds of beauty is completely subjective.
Yeah.
Men have like, also whenever I've dated a girl, like whenever it's come up, do you think I've gained a little bit of weight? Like I'm into it.
Yeah. They always, all my guy friends, they're always like, wow, I think my girlfriend looks so hot right now. And then on the other side, she's telling me that she's like so unhappy and whatever. And it's like, we're all a bit twisted in that regard. I think, it's such a journey to like have self-love. And it's like a very difficult thing. Like I've been so awful to myself and my body for so many years. And it's like been something I've been more focused on recently, because like body dysmorphia is a huge issue for both men and women. But it's like, it's such a waste of our life. In our body. Like it's really taking something for granted if we're just like not enjoying it. And usually like the most attractive thing about people is kind of like some sort of like energy that like shines out of them. It's like a lot of the time when people have their most best like disciplined like perfect body, like they're not happy. Yeah. They're often not really loving themselves, like truly. And I just think like if we could all be a little easier on ourselves about that, and it's like just having that balance of understanding like how important some of the things, like we make it too important sometimes, and we make a lot of commentary about a lot of other people's bodies, and I think that needs to stop.
That needs to stop.
It's really like you got to put yourself in the shoes if you find yourself doing it, or like even sending a photo of someone to someone else and then having conversation about it. Like just imagine if someone was doing that about you and how it would feel. Because I see it obviously all the time, especially with girls that I work with, a very high profile, and people love to comment about their bodies or about even just, you see it all the time online. I'm like, guys, why are we doing this? And a lot of it is like woman on woman crime. I'm like, we really have to be better than this. Like if we are asking for respect in a lot of other ways, like let's start respecting ourselves and our bodies, and just like, it doesn't matter. It's not your body. Like relax.
Exactly. I mean, we can encourage people and celebrate when people do choose a healthier path, but it's important to...
It just feels like there's more criticism than celebrating a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think that's the difficult thing with the internet, because maybe we see more of one than the other, and we know criticism always hurts. So like, and you can let criticism sting more than like all the compliments that someone gives or whatever. I'm just, just if we could be cognizant about the way we speak about bodies in general, because the more that we're saying things like that, it is in our system.
Yeah.
And then it's like that's pulling around in your brain, and your body's listening, and the body doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's not sometimes. Like Joe Dispenza talks about that a lot. It's like if you're obsessively thinking about something, you can your body can start like living out that scenario.
Yeah. No, we all got to be a little bit more compassionate, and social media is such a double-edged sword, but the way that people talk about each other in the comments, it's it's like not even necessarily like, yeah, you should be more compassionate when leaving the comment on the person's post, but also we're rarely, if ever, thinking about the way that comment is being perceived by the other person who's just coming over and reading those comments.
Yeah, it's not good.
Yeah. It sucks. It's a bummer. And yeah, body dysmorphia is, men and women today are facing it.
And I think that social media makes it worse. Like that's like, I recently had a nice big break, like 2 weeks off social media, and wow, it was incredible. I felt amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Highly recommend.
I'm a little too online, but it's that sounds lovely. I think it's important to build in periods of your day where you're not on it. Like I'll often work out and I'll leave my phone in the locker.
Oh, I love that.
I don't do that as much as I would like to do that, but I do it sometimes, and I very much appreciate.
I usually have my phone, but I have it on Do Not Disturb so I can like listen to my music, but I'm not checking anything because I want that like sometimes it's only 30 minutes. Sometimes if I'm lucky, it's an hour and like undisturbed time.
And then when you realize it's been half an hour since I've looked at my phone.
I'm like, oh, that's great.
It's nice. Yeah. Man, what about the notion that certain exercises can lengthen muscles?
Well, there's a lot of science that's just like saying like this is just not true. Do you know what I mean? Like there's obviously exercises that feel lengthening, but it's not actually lengthening the muscle. You know, like with those strength training exercises, what I like is like working with the fascia and getting myofascial work done to actually like kind of like create space back through the body, because we are getting robbed of a lot of space, especially when we're strength training. You know, it does tend to like compact us down. But yeah, we see it that terminology used a lot with people saying this is going to like strengthen and lengthen. And
yeah, like in yoga,
not,
like lengthening.
Yeah. I think that like in yoga, sometimes I'm like, I feel like it's like that feeling like it almost like, because you are getting space back in your body, right? But yeah, it's a difficult.
Well, because so many of us, I mean, we're just like hunched over. Anterior dominance is
it's really difficult.
Yeah, today, like we're in our phones or we're sitting at our desks or we're in our cars and car seats, kind of like
everything's pushing forward. It's crazy. But what I really like is I try personally like not really to use those words with strength stuff, but it's like I always build in like the mobility, and I love a lot of fascia flossing, and I like personally to go get like myofascial work done. But yeah, trying to feel about like the idea of keeping space in your body and cueing the idea of space versus like lengthening.
And also just breathing, right? Create space.
Especially it's like, you know, if you think about a woman's torso when they've had a baby or something, and it's like, you know, keeping where their ribs are spaced and like how everything is like, and it's just like the body does all these miraculous things. And like if we do need to do some of the work to really like counter all our daily activities, being forward on our phone, being forward driving and stuff. So like really, how can we pull ourselves back? How can we not be too arrogant and think we don't have 5 minutes a day to work on posture and stuff? Like I know it's not always fun, but when you really work on your posture, you will see a big aesthetic change for your core. Like your body will sit nicer. Your body will feel better.
I love that. I heard it said recently that we should let our breath guide our movement.
Yeah.
Which I thought was kind of interesting because I'm also in PT currently. I'm getting physical therapy for I had back surgery recently. And so it's like when you breathe, first of all, breath is just naturally decompressing. It's decompressing for your spine. And sometimes I like hold my breath when I lift.
Right.
And so it's been a challenge for me to kind of begin to breathe more naturally, like when I'm lifting. And it's interesting because your breath actually can support your movement. Yeah. And it keeps you safe.
It really does. And like using your exhale on like the hardest part of the move is really amazing. So like usually like in a lift, you know, when you're having to like drive away from the floor with a heavy weight or something, you're trying to use your exhale. Like Pilates is really good in yoga for cueing breath. But sometimes we can, if we're not really dialed into the workout, you know, we're kind of like half-assing the breath rather than finding that like deep connection. I think that's one of the most amazing things too, of like when women go through like pre and postnatal training and really working on like knitting their core back together through a lot of breath work and through that deep pelvic floor work, which is you have to use the breath.
Very valuable.
And that's kind of crazy, you know, when you can feel a core like knitting back together, you're like, well, the body's incredible.
Yeah, super incredible. Man, so cool.
But yeah, holding the breath is, you know, we've all been there too, even in a cardio like workout or like when you're on a run and you're getting your stitch and stuff. And it's like, I just think in this day and age as well, where we get so overwhelmed and we've got so many demands on us, even outside of our training, like breath work is like a huge component. And that doesn't have to be going to a breath work class or following something online. It can be like even at nighttime trying to like get your heart rate to come down a little bit. Like sometimes what I do if I'm really stressed is I put a book on my stomach when I'm trying to fall asleep to make sure I'm getting some like deep belly breathing. So like watching the book rise and fall, because a lot of us are kind of doing this chest breathing and semi hyperventilating. And that really helped me just to have something physical that I could see and move. And it is funny because I do often wake up with the book somewhere around the bed.
That's powerful though. That's a cool tool.
It's just like a good, easy one to use, you know?
No, I love that. That's important. I mean, yeah, we will often white knuckle through, you know, the set, and that's, I think, a metaphor for how we often go through our day-to-day lives, like white knuckling through, forgetting to breathe. And it's, you know, if you can bring a little more breath into your workouts, I mean, maybe. Yeah.
And then like, if you think about even like a great stretch, like breath is how we release more of the tension from the body. So if we think about tension in the body that's coming from emotion during the day as well, you know, it's like, oh, wow, if we can just like take it back a notch, you know, like we feel that restriction when we're annoyed or we feel rage or we feel something. And so it's like, sometimes I always do this thing of like, I say I'm taking a lap if I really want to be reactive to something, and I'm just like using that to try and calm down and sort of like get my heart rate back down and like use my breath, and then I can ideally respond instead of react.
So valuable.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I feel like we've covered a lot.
We did.
This was so fun.
I know. I love it here.
We got to make this a regular thing.
Guys, if you have some myths that you're wondering about, you can send them through to Max and we'll bring it in for episode 2.
Hell yeah. Round 2 for sure. Let's do it. I'm game. It seems like a good place to wrap. Kirsty Godso, remind listeners or let listeners know where they can find you on social media, how they can support your work. And then I've got one last question for you.
You can find me on Instagram at Kirsty Godso. And yeah.
And it's Kirsty. It's not Christy.
He's right.
Kirsty Godso. Last question that gets asked everybody on the show. What does living a genius life mean to you?
Oh, it's living an authentic life for me, and like really dialing into like myself and like listening to my body.
Love that. Succinct, beautifully said. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you guys for listening. Share this episode with friends and loved ones that may benefit from it. And sending love out there to wherever you happen to be. I'll catch you on the next episode. Peace. Hey, if you liked that video, you need to check out this one here, and I'll see you there.